week of February 17th, 2025. Your forecast, my forecast, the forecast. The forecast. Forget all them other forecasts. You don't need them. What are you watching them other forecasts for? You're not going to learn anything from them. This is the best forecast. This is a beautiful forecast. We're having a very beautiful forecast. A lot of people tell me how beautiful. Forget all that stuff. Let's not go into that, huh? So the big news this week is that Mars is going to station to go direct, ending his 10-week retrograde that began on December 4th. Okay. That happens on Sunday, the 23rd, at the very, very end of this forecast week. Okay, so we're going to have to sort of anticipate that all week long. Still in all, even when Mars goes direct, I'll remind you about this next week. When Mars goes direct, it's not necessarily a great idea to go out and start a new job or to start a new exercise program, begin martial arts, or, well, whatever. Right away, you want Mars to get up to speed a little bit. By the time he gets up to speed, Venus is going to retrograde. But we'll talk about that as we go along. We're not going to talk about that right now. One thing you should know, though, is right around Mars station, let's say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, people are going to be feeling very martial, right? That martial energy comes out. So there's going to be, and Mars in Cancer, right? Mars stopped in Cancer, not his favorite sign. A lot of potential for irritability and crankiness and so on. There's a kind of want to do something but can't do it, can't quite get traction on things. Frustration builds and frustration finds its outlet. Not you, but people that you run into may have a little bit of an issue. Maybe you a little bit. But recognize it. That's the thing. When you start getting a little hot under the collar, when you start feeling this is a little bit much for me, then you say to yourself, okay, well, this is the Mars station, and it probably wouldn't be such a big deal by the time we get to the middle of next week or something like that. So it's the kind of thing you want to watch out for road rage and all that sort of associated type of thing. Especially because also at the end of the week, let's say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we have Mercury in a tense aspect to Jupiter. That's a square. Mercury is in Jupiter's home sign, one of his home signs of Pisces, and Jupiter is out in Mercury's home sign, one of his home signs of Gemini. So they are in what we call mutual reception, that they're in a tense relationship. They're in a tense relationship in signs they don't like to be in, but they're each other's signs. So it's almost like they're kind of giving like a phone call. Like this is the I don't know how to operate the microwave. Well, you push the button that goes on. It's that kind of thing. They can kind of speak each other's language to come to some kind of a compromise. It's a thought. It's a thought anyway, that might mitigate the situation a little bit. Otherwise, Mercury square Jupiter, you get people sort of shooting their mouths off. You get people saying a little too much. You get the sort of bombastic, their opinions come flying out and type of thing. I think we'll see a little bit less of that than we might otherwise. I mean, who knows? We're like drenched in that all the time anyway now. So I don't know how we would even describe a little change in that. But people say a little too much, especially Mercury and Pisces. Even you can say more than you really mean to say, right? You can let a little bit more slip out than is really your intention. So keep that in mind. That's just a thought to have there. Let's see, what degree are they at? Hold on one second. I'm looking really for myself. They're at about 11 degrees of Gemini and Pisces. And so if you've got placements right around that area, I mean, there you go. Mercury goes on to trine Mars in water signs. It should be, station Mars, getting a nice aspect from Mercury. It should be something along the lines of an opportunity to communicate, to share some information, maybe on an emotional level or something like that. Again, these things all overlap. The Mars station, the Mercury aspects to Jupiter and Mars, they're all kind of mishmash together over the weekend. And it is this kind of like there's tension, we can talk it out, we can maybe share some ideas, but on the other hand, we might also go a little bit over the top some of the time. So keep that in mind as we get to the end of the week. This is a very retrograde forecast. Coming back to the beginning of the week, starting on Monday and then going forward. Well, the sun goes into Pisces. The sun goes into Pisces on Tuesday, 5:08 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're still on Standard Time for another couple of weeks here. At 5:08 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's 10:08 Greenwich. And so the very last sign of winter, right? The last sign of the zodiac. This is the kind of, it's the Piscean time of letting go. It's that kind of, all right, you're holding on and you're trying to work things out, and then you get to the Pisces time and you let things go so that the Aries energy, the new Aries energy, can come up in the, in the new astrological year. So, you know, it's every February, March, so we're kind of familiar with it and stuff like that. But we should give you a little pep talk about Pisces. Just before that happens, the sun will square partnership asteroid Juno, and they're going to be at 29 degrees of their signs. The sun is at 29 degrees of Aquarius, where it's very principled. Aries, let's talk. Aquarius, very principled. Aquarius, let's talk about it. What's our ideal? Meanwhile, Juno is at the very, very end of Scorpio, which is it's a much more emotional, holding on, connecting, kind of vibe that you get there. So it's a little bit of like, well, we all kind of want this, and this is the ideal of the way things should be, but I'm not quite sure about it. I think maybe we're going to opt for security instead. If you got something going on in that department, that might be the thing that might be the thing that you're thinking about or that gets thought about. Certainly, in established relationships, there might be a little hint of tension. Although the next thing that happens is that Juno goes into Sagittarius, which is Jupiter's home sign. That's her hubby. Goes into Jupiter's home sign of Sagittarius, where there's a much more upbeat, let's look at the possibilities, let's try different things kind of attitude. And then of course the sun goes into Pisces, and so we have the shift that goes on. So maybe at the beginning of the week, and I'm thinking just really Monday, there might be, a tiny little bit of tension bopping around in the area of relationship. And then it should resolve. If not resolve, it might just dissipate as we go forward and get into Tuesday and beyond. So we are also at the waning cycle of the moon. So it's the waning cycle of the zodiac. But the sun is growing. Oh boy, we have light out here. Almost you can sort of see, twilight extending till 6 p.m. now. I think we have sunsets here at about 5:25, 5:30 right now. Another thing for you to watch, this is sort of astrology. When we get near the equinox, right, we're only a month away from the equinox on March 21st, the days, assuming that you're in the northern hemisphere, the days will get longer much, much quicker now. Much, much quicker. Right around the equinox, we add like a minute or so per day. Right around the solstices, there's very little change. But at the equinox, things, like in Pisces and in Aries, when the sun is in those signs, the days change rapidly. Of course, if you're in the southern hemisphere, we do have a couple of Australians who view this, and somebody from South Africa now and again, they tune in. If you're in the southern hemisphere, and Brazil, um, YouTube gives you stats, and I don't really look at them much, but I'm just thinking. If you're in the southern hemisphere, the days are getting shorter. much more rapidly. In the northern hemisphere, you notice it more. I think you can appreciate it as we approach the equinox in the springtime. Now, you can certainly feel the days getting shorter when the sun is in Virgo. Well, in the same way, they're going to get longer now that the sun is in Pisces. So we're on the waxing end of the solar cycle, right? The solar cycle in the year, things are really moving. We're starting to really feel, especially after Mars goes direct, we're starting to feel, yeah, things are kind of on track. And that's what's happened this year. A little explanation. We'll get back to the astrology here for a minute. What's happened this year is at the solstice, when the sun reached its low point in the cycle and then starts growing slowly, usually sometime around the beginning of Aquarius season in late January, you start to feel that return of the solar energy. And indeed, you kind of do. Certainly, I'm always appreciating the days getting longer and stuff like that. But what you had this year is Mars retrograde, sort of pulling us backwards. And now, we're in Pisces. We're getting very close to the equinox. The sun's really picking up speed, really spending more time above the horizon every day. Mars is going direct. Yeah, Venus is going to go retrograde, but that's sort of kind of it's a different thing. We'll talk about that. Next week, because March 1st, she retrogrades. But we're sort of getting the feel that things are moving, that they're coming a little bit more going forward. However, we're at the end of the lunar cycle, and that's one more little kind of reminder that that things are going, that we have. It's like when you're like in one of those situations where there's like, you can see a bunch of lights ahead and like they're all kind of red, and then, um, finally they start turning green. It's a little bit like the light in front of you turns green and you can go, but the light in front of that is still red or something along those lines. The new moon on February 27th, which we'll talk about next week, is going to feel a little bit more like go time, because then we have the solar cycle increasing and then the lunar cycle increases. And then on top of all, we have Mars going direct. So in little bits and pieces, we're starting to feel like, okay, we're moving along here. We're getting a little bit of progress. We're getting a little feel of things flowing, let's call it. I don't know, progress. I mean, I don't know, what the hell are we trying to accomplish, right? I mean, but if you got something to accomplish, this is gonna feel pretty good. Uh, but we've been a little bit held back. Now, mind you, things have happened. Lots and lots of things are happening, and maybe what we would say about that in part is that things are happening and they feel rather out of control. And perhaps we'll feel a little bit less that way once things get turned around as we get into next month and beyond. Although, to be honest with you, I'm always honest with you. Why do I say to be honest with you? Anyway, next month we start having eclipses and Neptune changes signs, and we're getting ready for Saturn to change signs. So really March, April, and May this year are going to be real mix it up kind of times. We'll see that playing out. And for years I've been saying, we talk about things that happen in the collective, that's the pond that we all swim in, that it's not something that happens on television. This is our experience that we all share. It's where we're living. It matters. And boy, oh boy, is that obvious now. Now we really feel that. Now the collective is personal. The line between the personal and the collective has really, really evaporated in a way, hasn't it? And so what happens in the collective is going to be having an outsized effect, I would say, on us individually. But you know what? We're just talking about this week. We're just getting a little bit of a thought about this week. As we are, it's a waning moon. maybe it's a good time to sort of wrap things up. There'll be some good opportunities for stuff. But anyways, we're waiting for Mars to turn around and go direct, and then even better when he can get into a nice fiery sign like Leo. But let's not press our luck. All right, that's a lot. I'll see you next week.